What's up guys, DH here, and would you just look at what City Skylines 2 looks like now. There's a lot we need to talk about and there's a lot we need to do, and for all of this we're going to need a brand new city. So get your sunscreen ready and welcome to Rio Paulo. So thanks to some very talented modders, we have, well, mods, and they actually work. Like, they make this game amazing and worth playing. There's lots to talk about, like I mentioned, but let's start with this map texture replacer. I jumped straight into the map editor and you can actually add your own custom textures to pretty much everything with relative ease. I'm not really the best, I'm not the most technical at this sort of thing, but I found a website called everytexture.com that had some pretty good 2, 3 and sometimes 4K images. I could save these in a custom folder and then import them into the game really easy. One thing that I didn't get the hang of, however, was height maps. I spent hours trying to get it to work and in the end I couldn't. I will revisit this at some point, but for now we'll just stick with the textures. So as you can see here, we're going for sort of a Rio de Janeiro vibe. If I was to boil it down, I would say very mountainous meets really beautiful beaches, very abruptly. It feels really criminal to boil it down that quickly, but that's basically the gist of the map. In today's episode, we're going to focus on the area really known as Copacabana. So we're going to have a really beautiful beach with lots happening. One thing that I would like to note is that the map is going to be really flexible. Even the roads that I've put in here that you've seen, all of this is going to change and evolve as we sort of move forward. As much as I can appreciate someone who works to the terrain and works to the map and makes that sort of look organic, for me, I just really enjoy that close-knit control so that I can really blend the city into the terrain very closely as we go. So what sort of buildings do we see around this area in real life? Well, lots of high residential, like everywhere, and the first observation that I can make is that all of the buildings have a light facade, almost white, like almost every building. So let's not muck about, let's jump right into these buildings here that make Rio de Janeiro look iconic. So some mad dog modders have spent hours going through making thumbnails for every single thing in game. Thanks to their heroic efforts, I can actually tell which buildings would look appropriate as I place them. As you could probably tell, that's vital to being able to make this city look as it should. The buildings are actually really nice looking too, like they are markedly better than City Skylines 1 models, and thanks to the better bulldozing tool we can modify them even further, like get rid of billboards and certain bushes and hedges and pathways that we don't want. For being this early in the modding scene, this is really amazing, the control that we have here. I mean, there's something really remarkably intuitive about all of this. Deep down, even us most hardcore critics knew that this game was going to be pretty amazing at some point. But for it to make such a profound leap so quickly here is just, I mean, it's pretty awesome, really. Certainly, I didn't expect it to jump that quickly. And like I mentioned, thank you to everybody involved, the modders, Sully, TDW, Algernon, Yin Yang, Rafterman NZ with his amazing maps. There's so many I can't name, but I'm so thankful for all of you. And I really can't wait to see City Skylines 2 get fully into its stride, and I don't think it's anywhere close yet, which is scary good. One of the reasons I've chosen to sort of build this type of city based on Rio de Janeiro is because there's so much going on in the city, there's so much different architecture, there's so much elevation change, there's differences between one side of the city to the other that are just night and day. There's a lot about the city that reminds me of southeastern Spain or the Mediterranean, and there's also a lot that reminds me of where I'm from in New Zealand, especially the geology like the Sugarloaf Peninsula and islands. That's very similar to what we'd see in New Zealand or a place like Hawaii. And I'm hoping this massive amount of variation just keeps me really busy for a while. So my first foray into the props within game was this little wee area here that I created by moving two buildings apart. I want to create a bit of a pedestrian only urban area here with some shops and a fountain and pretty much a plaza. And I have to say I was pretty overwhelmed at first by how many props and things are included. I mean, there was pretty much everything. It's gonna take me a long while to wrap my head around what's included with the base game, because that's important. If you don't know what you have available to you to build with, then you don't know what's possible to build, right? So my thinking is, let's start at the bottom. Let's start with really basic areas that we can put together really quickly with what we can see is available. These are certainly not going to be the most glamorous or amazing areas you've ever seen, but you're watching me get to grips with the game basically. We get lots of extra props with these detailing packs that look real trashy and grungy, and when we couple this with the graffiti from Sully, we can make some really awesome and unique looking areas. One really cool thing is they snap automatically to the side of buildings. This is so cool and so easy. Remember, not every part of a city is beautiful. We get these areas, right? So now we can spend the time going down all these back alleyways and making them look like there's 55 homeless people living down there. So the road here that runs in real life right next to the beach is a bit of a boulevard style road. There's a lot that happens on this little wee stretch of land between these roads, and we're going to turn this section into like a little bit of a walkway. We've also got a lot of gym props available now, so I thought why not make like a little wee gym sports park down here. A lovely spot to come and get swole in the sun on a beautiful day. I don't think I've ever said get swole before. But anyway, this is another cool little opportunity to work with the props a little bit more, figure out a little bit more about them, and more importantly, see what's available and try and formulate ideas for areas in future. So we'll put down this little wee gym here right in this space that the path creates, and there's another cool function within the game where we can turn this into an actual gym area, just like a park area from City Skylines 1. So I'll do that, and then I'll finish off the area with some dirty decals to make it look a little bit more realistic. So we now have some pretty amazing things available to detail a beach. In fact, that's a big part of the reason why I even chose a Rio-style city. I mean, that would be pointless if we couldn't detail a beach, right? Seeing as most of the city is beaches. So we're going to start with this main beach here where I've got the sand area, and we're just going to slowly make our way along the beach, detailing it up. So we'll start here by raising the land a little bit just on the outside of the sand, and then applying some boulders around here as a bit of weather protection or tidal protection. This is also where it transitions into like a little peninsula, which is quite common for this area. And I'd like to keep in mind that I'm going to jam pack a lot of big buildings in here, and this is actually going to be quite a high-end area. So even though I'm raising the terrain, I'm keeping it quite flat and still very buildable. So once I'm happy with all the levels, we can go through and put these boulders in, and wow, I've got to say, these look amazing. The props in general are really well done. They look very realistic, the texture's great, and what a difference just putting these around, hiding that ugly edge of the terrain. So I'd also like to have a couple of access points down here. So we're going to create a gap within the boulders so that people can get onto the beach from this part of the city. And again, it just gives me a little bit more practice on how to transition these beach areas into the city a little bit. So there's going to be so many areas like this in the city when it's finished, and I don't want them to all look the same. So now we can move on to applying these new beach decals that Sully has released to our beach. And these make by far the biggest difference. These look absolutely incredible. They made this beach look so realistic, and it was a lot of fun putting these decals down, matching them all up, and just watching this beach come to life. So I'd like to drop back to the main block that we've been building in this episode and finish it off properly. We're going to put in a couple more buildings, mainly commercial spaces because we need them within game, and then I'm going to spend some time just filling in all the little blank spaces with some detail. Things like random little car parks and parked trucks, access points for services, and just extending out these buildings naturally. We're also going to see lots of stains and grime on the ground and lots of graffiti, because we see a lot of that in real life around this area too. And it's just so easy to apply all of that stuff to buildings, so why not have it everywhere? So let's start building this really flash neighbourhood here. I'd like to extend the road out to start with, and I guess this is going to be the main road. This is going to sweep around the coast here and become eventually one very swanky street. So what sort of things would we see in an area like this? Well, I reckon we'd have like a really nice marina. So let's start by building one of those. I'd like to try and make it look like it's got a little bit of character, like maybe it's a couple of 100 years old. So I want to start by finding an appropriate building. This model here that I found is perfect, so we'll make two versions of this, split it, and then create a space for a car park in the middle. So at this point, I have favorited a few props that I thought would be handy for certain builds in the future, and one of them was just like a concrete pillar. It's going to be pretty crude, but this is what we're going to use to create our marina. It's going to be very, very simple, at least at this point. So like I mentioned, pretty simple, but pretty effective. I think it looks pretty good. So let's extend the idea of this posh area a little bit further. I would like to put some tennis courts up here. We're also going to have a little bit of a coastal walkway that's going to wind around to these courts just at the top of the boulders. Once I've got these areas in, then we can start jamming in some really big high residential buildings around here. There's probably going to be about 500 people living just in this small area here. It's going to be really busy. We're going to add our first interesting bit to the beach here with this little pier that's going to jut out. I've just levelled the land off here out into the water and used a pedestrian path with a key on the edge of it to frame it. Eventually, we should be able to make all of this out of wood and timber and make it look like a really realistic pier. I'd imagine there's going to be heaps of stuff released in the next few months. But for now, this looks pretty tidy and it's doing the trick, so we'll put a few boulders around the edge of it, and then we're going to use the surfaces and find an appropriate wood surface and make it look like it's got a wood deck on the top of it. Now I reckon that looks pretty darn cool. I'm hoping to do a few things out here that draw a few of the citizens within the city out here as well. So it'd be cool to have actual attractions out here that they come and check out. They should use the pedestrian path that runs around the perimeter of it, but yeah, I'm not sure about that because obviously I've never done this before, so it's all kind of exciting to learn how it all works again. If they don't use that path, I'll just run an invisible one right down the middle. I'm also going to put one of those hang around areas right out here on the end of the pier, much like we did for the gym area, and then the idea would be just to really test the props within game and jam pack this entire pier with props like market stalls and little shops. Maybe there's a few areas where the young kids can hang out and play on a little playground or whatever. There is just so many bloody props in this game, like it's freaky how many props there are. There just really seems to be a prop for everything that I type in. So I'm not going to cover this entire pier with props, we're just going to focus on certain areas and leave others for future. Maybe some of the things on the pier change, like maybe there's concerts and things out here at certain times. One thing that I pictured out here right from the start is a skate park, so when the waves aren't pumping, the mini ramp always is. Skating is massive in Brazil. They have some of the best skateboarders in the world, and this just looks so at home out here on this pier, real Venice Beach styles. We'll make sure to make some real grungy, sort of dirty, rubbish infested areas out here as well, because after all, it is those unruly skateboarders that are out here. And then I'll just finish off by jamming a few more props in, things like parasols and seating areas. City Skylines 2 is definitely at a point now where we can add far more personality and character to our cities. Small but simple changes can change things massively in the bigger scheme, and I'm genuinely excited for City Skylines 2 and the direction that everyone's going to take it. I can't wait to see what others do. Is it perfect? Absolutely not, but it's better than it was, and all of these new additions have made it really enjoyable to play. I hope you guys have enjoyed our little dive into Brazil today. I'm really enjoying building the city. A thumbs up on the video would be much appreciated if you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. See you later.